When I read anything, really, I'm always looking for the through line of intention. I'm always looking for a sense that these characters want something. I firmly believe that we go to the theater to see people struggle their way through life, right? And it is not interesting to see something where there's no sense of a struggle. So that was at the end of the last video. Now it's up front. Okay, so what do I do when somebody sends me a new script, particularly if it's a playwright whose work I don't know already? I open the document, which is always a PDF if it's coming to me, because I only read PDFs. Never send anyone a document. Don't send your play or screenplay to someone in a format that allows them to edit your work. Common sense, right? So only PDF. I open the PDF. I always make sure that I'm watching it in a view that allows me to keep the pages as a kind of outline on the left side so that I can click through as I'm looking at stuff. I always grab a stack of scrap paper or a yellow legal pad or something, and I keep it on the table. By the way, I read scripts sitting in a chair as I am at a table. I do not sit in the comfortable, comfy, cozy armchair that I like to sit in when I do some of my creative work. I'm going to let you just think about that. Okay. Now, I just start reading, and I keep the paper and the pen. Oh, also, of course, I have a pen ready, but I do not hold the pen. This may seem silly for me to even tell you, but I do not hold the pen because I do not want to be a slave to the pen. In other words, I do not want to read in a way that suggests to my unconscious, you are reading to make notes. No, the pen sits nearby, accessible to me, but not in my hands, because I'm reading to be absorbed. I am reading to get into the story, to meet these characters where they are, to find out who they are, and to see what happens. Okay, so when do I pick up the pen? Okay, here are the things that will make me pick up the pen. One, something that is incredibly wonderful and somewhat surprising, given the context of whatever the script is. Oh, also, I skipped one thing. It is common practice in, not in screenplay, but in stage play, to do a list of characters, a cast of characters after your title page. I always skip the cast of characters, and I never read a synopsis before reading a script. I want to encounter the play the way I would encounter it, or as closely as I can, to the way that I would encounter it sitting in a theater, having the lights come up, and then having it happen in front of me. So I don't want to know who everybody is before I see them talking to each other and interacting and living and breathing. I want to be confused. If I'm going to be confused in the theater about who this person is, then I want to be confused. I don't want to cheat by reading your cast of characters. But that's not to say you shouldn't have a cast of characters. I'm just telling you how I read. Okay. So what makes me pick up the pen? If something surprises me, that can be something about a character. And these can be good or bad. I will make notes of things that surprise me in a wonderfully positive way. I will also make notes of things that surprise me in a negative way. So something could surprise me about a character in a wonderful way, like, oh my God, I never saw that coming. I didn't see the depths of layers underneath, blah, blah, blah. Write it down. Now, I always try to write it down with a reference to what in the script made me pick up the pen. Now, what does that mean? It means your language. So it means your line of dialogue, your stage direction, what have you. And I try to remember, I'm not always so good about this, but I try to remember to put the page number so that if I'm having a discussion with someone, I can then reference the page. So things that surprise me. I also will make a note of any time I feel like a character stops speaking authentically as the character and starts to feel suspiciously like they have been hijacked by the playwright and they are starting to give a voice to things that the playwright wants the audience to either feel, see, know, etc. This is sometimes in the form of, the most obvious form is exposition. Like if two people are talking to each other on stage and they're talking about something that they both know, they're rehashing information that they both already know. That's an obvious example of exposition. But there are other more subtle things, like when all of a sudden a character starts moving decidedly towards something that you feel. You don't quite feel it organically coming from who that character is and what that character wants, but instead you suspect that the playwright has an agenda. Whenever I feel the playwright's agenda, I write it down. I also will make note of things that are particularly noteworthy, either in a good way or a bad way, in terms of the language of theater. Like the visual language of theater, the way we move from one scene to another, transitions. That's another thing that I want to say. I always focus on transitions. Transitions in drama are where the drama happens. So if I start out loving you, and then I start to mistrust you, and then I eventually hate you, how the transition happens is of critical importance. So I make notes of those things. I make note, of course, of something where there's something I completely don't understand. It can be a simple thing like a word that I didn't know. Now, here's the thing. If I am reading your script and I see a word I don't know, or a reference to a historical event, or a real figure from history that I'm not familiar with, Google may help me, and I will probably go to Google because I'm a curious person and I'll be interested to find out, but that won't help you. I want you to know every moment where my ignorance gets in between me and your play. Generally speaking, the one thing that I'm not really interested in when I'm first reading a script is structure. It's too early for me to think about structure. I'm just trying to meet these characters, figure out who they are, what they want, and where they're going. I try to make very few notes the first time I read something because I try to just get the sort of overall thrust of the story emotionally, so that at the end I can sit quietly and think about what I think it's about, how it's structured, what your choices were in terms of how you told a story. I mean, any story that I want to tell can be told, obviously, in an infinite number of ways. My friend Sophronia Scott has a wonderful video on her Friday video series where she talks about this issue. You should never ever feel like if somebody else has written about a topic, you should avoid that topic. Everybody's approach to everything is always going to be unique, and we need to hear your approach. And your approach will never be the same as somebody else's approach. So that should just not even be a concern. So that's really it. I'm looking at kind of who are these people, what do they want, what's happening, where's the conflict, and how do I feel throughout the piece, and particularly at the end of the piece. I hope that this helps. Keep writing, and keep sending stuff to people, and keep reading other people's stuff, and keep going out for a walk and seeing the world. It's too tempting to sit home all day inside working on your stuff. Your stuff will be fed by the world outside. Mwah!